Hey everyone, and welcome to Offstage, a conversation with students, hobbyists, and professionals from the world of music about music with me, your host Anagh. And today I have guests Ruthvi and Sonal. Hey guys, how's it going?
Hey,
Yeah,
Anna.
Hey Ruthvi, hey Sonal.
good.
Going good, going good. This is the first time in episode we've unfortunately missed on a Saturday. So this episode's coming out 1 week late, and also because of scheduling problems, I'm also sick today. But
Wow. Yes,
it
I can
is
hear that in your voice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so today is going to be a fun episode. It's also the first time we are having audio engineers on. Till now, I've had all instrument players or vocalists or something like that. So
yes.
yeah,
The,
so
the other side of the spectrum.
the other side of the spectrum. That's right. And the first uh, question that I have for the both of you, which I ask everyone, is could you give me a bit of an introduction to yourselves, Ruthvi?
Sure. So I do multiple things, whatever that interests me. So I would like to start out that way, than stating myself to be a freelancer.
Hmm.
So I enjoy working with sound,
Hmm.
so passionately. As long as possible, I've kept it going until today.
Hmm.
Yes, I'm also kind of a producer. So I help artists uh, get their music out.
Hmm.
And, I'm also a bit of a psychologist. I
Okay.
still kind of pursue that in my own way.
Hmm.
Yes, apart from that, you know what I do. It's mostly recording, and again, all comes back to sounds.
Uh, well, I've known you for years and I didn't know about that psychology thing. So that's
Oh
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah. And Sodan, what about you?
Well, um, let's just say I started off with sound, after my 12th, basically.
Hmm.
So I was full on into computers and programming and development and electronics
Hmm.
till then, till about my of all my school days. I was all into that. But then somehow, with a plot twist, I turned into sound engineering. Did a diploma in Kerala, in Cochin, in
Oh,
sound
wow.
engineering and audio design, sound
Hmm.
design. And then ever since that, I've been working, both live and in studio,
Hmm.
mixing for different bands, recording, mixing, mastering. And right now, as you know, I'm working in musical studio in Kormangla as a full-time
Yep.
engineer. But I also freelance for bands live. And apart from that, I'm a developer. I also work on websites, other pieces of software, and all that stuff.
Hmm.
But yeah, music is my main thing, and yeah, enjoy
Hmm.
doing that primarily.
Ah, okay. And the second question that I have, I mean, I think Sonal has answered a bit of it already in the introduction, but I will ask it anyway, is how you got into sound engineering and production or got into the whole music thing and what gave you the push to pursue it full time? Ruthvi?
So yes, when I was uh, probably in tenth,
Hmm.
my 10th grade or something, so we had to go to studio and record,
Yep.
and that was a big thing back then. Finding a studio and somebody who at least had a place to record drum kit with drum kit mics and all of that. And then something happened. Let me not get in deep into it. So it was not up to our expectation, and probably it was quite quite bad and pathetic, if I have to say.
Hmm.
The whole process and experience and all of it, and hence the result also was uh, quite bad, and it just took me away. And by by the time I reached my 11th,
Hmm.
so I used to use a lot of softwares. I think, can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, I can hear you.
Yes. So I used to use a lot of softwares, at least FL Studio and Ableton Live at that point in time. I think FL 8 was there, FL 10 was there,
Hmm.
then Ableton 6 or something was there. So that's how I started using softwares from when I was in 8th grade and 9th grade or something.
Hmm.
Then I had a bit of brief knowledge about sound and how it works, what happens uh,
Hmm.
behind the song, behind making the song. So once we hit the studio, I understood that okay, I need to pursue this because what if I'm there? I could do a better job.
Hmm.
At least I could take care of my own productions, my own art, and all of that. And that's how it started. And eventually, it gave me confidence and more validations through.
Oh, okay. I mean, I kind of relate to the part where you said you got into it also to so that you could produce your own stuff
Yes,
and mix it
yes.
yourself. That's one of the reasons I started getting into audio engineering or production myself. I mean, I'm nowhere near you guys, but
Wait,
yeah,
no,
I mean, I've started. There has been a start.
you're in the right track. You're
Yeah,
having a pretty great journey, if you ask me. You have
thanks.
nice,
Thank,
more exposure, and you can decide what's right and what's wrong for you
yeah,
within no time.
yeah. And so, what about you? I mean, other than what you said in the introduction, is there anything else you can add when it comes to how you got into it and what pushed you into doing it full time?
Yeah, I'd say it was more of a coincidence than anything else. Like,
Okay.
you guys started out as musicians, right?
Yeah.
Primarily, I'd say both of you guys started out as musicians.
Hmm.
But as for me, I was not much of a musician. I used to play some keyboard in school for some school bands and stuff. Apart from that,
Hmm.
not really a hardcore musician. But after when I was pursuing my 12th,
Hmm.
so there was this unfortunate accident that I got into. So
Okay.
my yeah, my cousin was driving our car crashed into a tree.
Oh God.
So full time hospitalization scenes, and then I had to sit at home for about 3 months. Basically, I had to rest my back and all that.
Okay.
So that's when there's nothing to do, man. Like you just sit at home and do nothing, right?
Right.
That's when I started to. I used to love music before, but then from that point in time, I started to listen to a lot of different bands.
Hmm.
Till then it was all the mainstream stuff. But from that point of time, a lot of prog, metal, all kind of jazz, different diverse kind of music I started to listen to, and got a lot more interested into how music was made, how it was being done for movies. Started out with FL Studio,
Hmm.
tried to make some beats on my own. I am pretty sure a lot of people would relate to that. Uh, like that. And then I'm also a very technical person. I like to experiment with technology, and
Hmm.
kind of like to create new workflows in terms of what I do. So that way I saw sound engineering as a place where I can be highly technical, but
Hmm.
also bring in the creative side, or bring in art to it and blend both of it, and work, where the creativity and the logical side of it works together. I really like that aspect of sound engineering. And yeah, so from there on, it was regular. I searched for schools, found one, and did a lot of projects on my own as well.
Hmm.
From there, I'd say it was a regular journey, a person would take
Okay.
to becoming a professional.
Right. Right. So, having been sound engineers for quite some time, uh, what would you say for you personally, for both of you personally, uh, would regard as the most challenging part of being a sound engineer? Who wants to answer this first, Ruthvi?
I think Sonal can go.
So,
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'd say it's I don't know, probably interacting with clients, man. Like,
okay.
the I'd say compared to that, the easier part is getting the sound right, doing what you love, because you love doing it and
Right.
you're good at that. That's awesome. But when it comes to dealing with people, the patience you have to have, the
Hmm.
right kind of way to talk to certain people,
Hmm.
uh, and the business part of it, that is what most institutions don't prepare you for most of the
Hmm.
time. they
Right.
they they make you good professionals, but um, the other side of it, the human resource side of it,
Hmm.
is what some most of the time I find a little
Okay.
hard. Yeah.
Okay. No, that makes sense. That's a kind of perspective I've probably not thought about before. So that kind of brings in a new light into sound engineering, at least for me.
Yeah.
And
People.
yeah, and people, of course, people who are planning on pursuing sound engineer or they're aspiring sound engineers, something they should also think about. Like dealing with clients is also a very important thing. So
No,
yeah.
as I would like to add, as Sonal mentioned,
Hmm.
uh, exactly as he said, it's something that's everyone should be aware of. All the sound engineers or
Hmm.
anybody who's into production behind the
Hmm.
scenes should be aware of. One thing I would like to add is the communication bit.
Okay.
It would be a simple communication, like
Hmm.
where one cable is going from one signal chain to another.
Hmm.
Sometimes it just gets so confusing that uh, probably one man out of all of us who's working is just a little uh, out of the place, or his mind is somewhere else, or
Okay.
something. There would be a very smallest of the mistake wherein which would cost a huge time.
Hmm.
Say probably a small cable change would
Yeah.
sort it in a few seconds
Hmm.
than taking about an hour or so just trying to figure out what's gone wrong,
Hmm.
troubleshooting. Most of the troubleshooting is because of uh, communication gone wrong
Okay.
or
Right.
the lack of communication.
Right. So what I've learned is one of the most challenging parts of sound engineering is less in the sound engineering part itself, but what goes behind into making it happen. Is that the right way of phrasing it? But basically, like the communication and the dealing with clients part aspect of being a sound engineer. Very, very interesting. And one more thing I have to ask you guys, because I'm sure you've recorded and mixed a whole lot of songs and tracks and bands and whatnot. So, what would you say is one thing that every track or every anything you produce should have for it to be complete or full or solid, or you get what I mean? Like you can tell the difference between like a home recording of of some song which someone has done, like some amateur this thing, versus like a full on production. And if you see all your proper production songs, there's always something to it that makes that song full or whole. So what would you say that one thing is, Ruthvi?
So on a very surface level, let me start off with it, mostly it depends on the composition plus the arrangement.
Okay.
Then the just the composition itself sometimes draws the attention of the listener completely. It wouldn't even uh, give us another perception of a better production or not in
Hmm.
that case. So one is the main core is composition, and then the arrangement that comes right along with that.
Hmm.
So I think most of it, when we say the production is great, it mostly starts off from this.
Hmm.
If the composition or the arrangement is not up to the mark and satisfactory in terms of for an artist, or at least for that composer, then the production would probably go for a toss most like 99% of the time.
Okay.
That's on a very surface level. I think I would let Sonal add on to it, and then
Hmm.
Hmm.
we can have both of us have the conversation.
Yeah, what Ritvi said there, very valid point. So it all boils down to composition and arrangement most of the
Hmm.
time. Because the other thing is, this is a very subjective, you know, point. Because
Yeah.
depending on the genre or the kind of music or the places of application, or it differs. You know, something that a metalhead would consider good composition might not be the same for somebody who's a pop guy, right?
Right.
So it's very subjective, but generally it boils down to that. And something see lacking in many compositions these days is dynamics.
Hmm.
Something, so music is all about that, right? Controlling your emotions, you know, making you get off the edge of your seat and
Yeah.
pushing you back down. That kind of dynamics is most of the time missing in the
Hmm.
compositions that come to me for mixing, or the ones that I have to track.
Hmm.
And apart from that, what makes a good production is the sound of it. The sound really matters too. After obviously after composition and arrangement, the sound of it really matters. And when it comes to, like, also the way you gauge a record, it could be different. Like, are you doing it from an artist's point of view? Are you doing it from a commercial point of view? Something that's a commercial success might not be appealing to people who are actual musicians, or artists might not approve of that. So
Yes, we-
very, 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 very subjective points of view that might collide over there in that question.
Okay.
But I could say composition and arrangement, just like Ruthvi pointed out.
Okay.
yes. And the sound, when he said sound, it's the source sound that which matters. Again, uh, it's as equal as it's as important as composition itself when it comes to, because it's the baby of a production, right? When we have a very nice production and we are recording the same, probably the same acoustic guitar parts in a quite a reflective and a bad room, obviously we cannot expect a really bright and shining acoustic guitar sitting in the mix, right? Nor the drums. If it's recorded in a wrong place, yes, we can never expect the same sound, and hence not doing justice to the whole composition itself. By arrangement, I mean nothing should clash musically.
Right. Okay.
That,
That makes
that's
sense. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and there, it is also not to say, with the advent of technology these days, the kind of power that people have in your laptop at in a bedroom is like insane these days. So
Yeah.
sometimes if it's properly engineered and properly
recording.
produced, sometimes you really cannot tell the difference between a bedroom recording and something that was actually done in a studio.
Very true.
So it's very thin line between what you'd consider great and not. So a lot of variables into that. Just adding to the point over there.
Okay.
The connection between uh, every path, I mean every chain in the path that we're taking uh, is very important. We should be aware of what we're doing, where we are recording, why I'm recording there, what mic I'm using. Is it fine to record this particular layer or this particular instrument uh, in this nature that we are actually doing it? So it completely depends on how knowledgeable or how attentive we are. And yes, so a very good bedroom production can go haywire, like uh, Ed Sheeran has done. A lot of them, from Post Malone, Ed Sheeran, a lot of people who can just sit at home today to Charlie Puth, like
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
pretty much
yeah,
produces every other song at home. And also, if you see, the arrangements are fairly simple. It doesn't need to be produced in a studio. Like, not much of recordings that's happening apart from minor electric guitar, minor acoustic guitar kind of parts. Apart from that, it's just his vocals. In that, he keeps as simple as possible. It's just his creativity. So in that case, it works. For a band like Periphery or
yeah.
anybody like that, Lamb of God cannot produce at home.
Right.
We should probably record at Musico or Octavium, and then take back the parts, uh, and then sit down and work in our bedroom, see
Yeah.
what suits the best and what not. But
Yeah.
it completely depends on the genre, the style of music, and the artist.
Okay. Very interesting. And one thing I've noticed with a lot of people, especially ones who are not like full on, how do I say this? They're not actually sound engineers. They've got a board and they're trying to figure out what to do. And a lot of people in general also don't know this. But what is the difference between volume and gain? Because a lot of people think it's the same thing. What, as sound engineers, what is the best way you would put that difference as?
Uh,
You want to answer this, Sonal?
yeah, I could.
Yeah. And then if Ruthvi has
Taking-
anything to add, he can add.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so gain is a measurable quantity, right? It's a mathematical quantity.
Hmm.
It's how much you're amplifying something.
Hmm.
So if you have a microphone signal that's at like, I don't know, 0.2 volts,
Hmm.
and you amplify it to like let's say 2 volts or 2.5 volts, there's a certain level of amplification that you do. And
Hmm.
in terms of in physics, you put that kind of sound ratios in decibels,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Decibels. So gain is a particular quantity, and in terms of audio, it's the amount of amplification applied to a signal, which can be measured in numbers,
Hmm.
and it's a physical quantity. Volume is very subjective. Volume depends on you know you have a volume control on your computer, your phone, or the
Hmm.
amplifier at home.
Hmm.
It's not a measurable quantity. It's like it's subjective. People who so something that's high volume to somebody might be low volume to somebody else.
Hmm.
It's a subjective measure of how loud something is.
Okay.
So that it's not measurable. It's just a uh, let's say like a virtual measure of how loud something is to people. If
Hmm.
that makes sense. So Ruthvi, what's it?
Yes, I absolutely agree with that. So, very, if I have to give a quite basic hypothesis of it, probably you have a whole huge water tank
Hmm.
on top of your house or the apartment, whatever, the building. So you have, with the gain, you've filled as much as it's required, and with the tap, you're just letting how much ever you want
Hmm.
go out of it. It's as simple as that. So gain is something that you store. You take in and you store. It's the input that we are storing in. And the volume is just the control of the loudness that we want at
Hmm.
our own convenience. We can't always gain up and gain down
Hmm.
because that would affect a lot of other things in our workflow.
Hmm.
And that hence we have a volume control for everything. We have a volume
Right.
control for a bus mix, and inside a bus mix we still have volume control for each channel. For
Hmm.
example, if you see, we have a volume control for ourselves for the for, for the control room
Hmm.
uh, in that case. So volume control is just the small little tool to control the loudness of a signal. But
Okay.
gain is something that we already set.
Hmm. Because
It, it's
one of the
it's
biggest
pretty
reasons
much.
and one of the biggest reasons I asked the question is because, especially live, I've seen a lot of people use the words volume and gain synonymously. So
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons.
So
At least in India, it's very different.
Hmm. I think Sonal was about to say something, but he froze.
Yeah,
Sonal, like that.
I think he's frozen for a bit. So in India, it's if you're in Bangalore, in and around Bangalore, it's quite a different vocabulary. If you go to
Hmm.
Bombay and Pune, it's a kind of a different vocabulary. If you go to Trivandrum, Kochi, Chennai, it's kind of a different vocabulary.
Hmm.
So uh, at least when you're talking to sound vendors or uh, even engineers,
Hmm.
sometimes they would probably use the two words synonymously, but
Hmm.
it's completely different
Hmm.
than uh, it
Yeah.
is. At
Sonal, you
least
were about to
practically,
say something, no? Before you froze. Oh, sorry, Ruthvi, I cut you off.
yeah. So practically, we tend to, whoever it is, we tend to understand and use it wisely
Ah.
because we usually don't use the gain knob once it's set.
Hmm.
Otherwise, if we gain down something, then all of the other mixes goes for a toss. And
Right.
Anna would be like, "What happened to my snare? Ruthvi? It's just gone all of a sudden." If I no, then I have to probably just control the volume of the snare if I want it to be changed,
Hmm.
not the gain.
Okay.
Yeah. So no.
Sonal?
say in the live scenario, you can think of gain as the amplification you set on your gain knob, and volume is your fader,
Okay.
right? Just to put it in simple terms, when people talk about volume and gain in a live venue, when you say decrease the volume, what you go for is the fader and not the gain knob.
Yeah.
But most people don't understand that, and they, as Rifi said, they use it interchangeably, but
Hmm.
they are two
Cons-
very, very
constant.
different things.
Yeah. So
But
can you also
practically, it will teach.
increase your microphone volume a little bit?
Sure, sure, sure.
Yeah. And Ruthvi, you were saying?
Practically, it will teach what it has to the right way.
Ah,
Probably one or two
okay.
mistakes, and they would never ever touch the gain knob again.
Yeah.
Once musician on stage or probably on the other side
Hmm.
would probably complain, why did the guitars became so loud, or why did the bass became so loud, or whatever it is. It's just that okay, then I would probably understand, oh, why did I even turn the gain knob? And then I would learn
Hmm.
that it's not the gain I have to change, it's just the volume control for them in their mix
Hmm.
is something
Yeah.
that has to be changed. So any engineer would at least learn it the hard way. This is the hard way.
Hmm. Okay. And like I've said before, you guys have done a lot of productions, a lot of mixing for a lot of bands, a lot of songs, etc. So, what if there is one? What would you say is the most exciting project you've done till date, Ruthvi?
I have a few, but one with Dr. Prakash Chantakesa is
Hmm.
his first album
Hmm.
was uh, it was such an incredible experience because everything was surprising. Each day was a new day, and
Right.
everything was surprising. Nothing was actually planned,
Hmm.
and it's quite scary when I'm saying nothing is actually planned. But
Yeah.
with the right kind of people, it should be possible. That's
Hmm.
what I realized. Uh, Without almost any efforts being felt,
Hmm.
that's how each one of them function at
Hmm.
that point in time. We just hit the studio and hit the record button exactly that as I'm describing. Didn't even know that it's going to be an album. They didn't even know that they wanted to record songs
Hmm.
and album. They just wanted to record bits and pieces of their jam,
Okay.
which eventually turned into album.
Hmm.
That was such an incredible experience. Everything was tracked in Octavium
Hmm.
using an X32 Behringer X32 uh,
Yeah.
as an interface.
Hmm.
Not if till date nobody agrees that we can record an album or good songs or have a pretty good production, solid production using such preamps and interfaces. But
Hmm.
I can vouch for it. I can say it's absolutely possible. We don't
Okay.
need any great high-end equipment. Obviously, that also comes with its own. I mean, driving a Benz to driving uh, an I-20 like I do, there's huge
Hmm.
difference with that. But if I know what my destiny and the result, what I want, then
Hmm.
it should be possible.
Okay.
So
Nice.
it was a great experience for
Hmm.
me because everything was on spot, nothing is planned,
Yeah.
and I it proved a lot of things for me personally as well. It helped me evolve uh, in a greater level exponentially.
Hmm. Okay.
Yes, I think that's about it, and a few
Yeah.
live shows which has taught me more than anything could ever.
Hmm.
So yes.
Okay. And Sonal, what about for you?
Well, to just what Rithi said, there's nothing, that can teach you more than a live show. To be
Hmm.
frank, live shows are like textbooks.
It
You
takes
don't get that from, you don't get that from any other school or any other experience. Live shows
Right.
are different. Yeah, but apart from that, yeah, a lot of good experiences. If I think about recent ones, we
Hmm.
had a we had a very popular automobile company approach our studio
Hmm.
like the last week, and June 21st was World Music Day, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So they wanted to showcase one of their electric scooters, which is absolutely silent.
Hmm.
Apart from the wind that's blowing, it doesn't make a sound apparently. And they
Hmm.
wanted to uh, do a video around that, and put it out for World Music Day. And we had like literally 3 days to do it.
Hmm.
So one of the days we had to spend on like looking for a location to shoot, and
Okay.
basically planning the script and all that. So we were left with like 2 days to actually complete the production.
Hmm.
So it was pretty exciting. Our team worked pretty well on that, shot the entire thing, and
Hmm.
on so the concept was the scooter is so silent that they can the rider can hear the sounds around them, and that is all that becomes music. So that was the concept
Okay.
around that. So we had to
Hmm.
go around shooting, and as they were shooting, I was recording live foley, and then categorizing it as we
Hmm.
went, and brought it back to the studio. And apart from probably a kick and a bass, we synthesized quite a lot of sounds. Like
Hmm.
we sampled quite a lot of sounds, put it together, made a decent beat, and I did whatever mixing I could
Hmm.
within 2 hours of time that was available. And we put it out actually like about 2 o'clock on 21st of June.
Okay.
We put it out. That was pretty exciting. Like within such a short amount of time that we could pull off that much of a
Hmm.
project. It was really good. And also when you're working with bands, that's a different thing. So that's the best thing about I like about this job.
Hmm.
There's a lot of possibilities, right? Like
Yeah.
you're working with independent artists, you're working with bands, you're working with corporates,
Hmm.
you're working with ad agencies. So that kind of flexibility that comes with it, you're pretty sure to meet good people, have good experiences all the time.
Yeah.
Not the and there could be bad ones as well, but you just keep the good ones in memory and
Right.
keep moving on, man.
Would you be allowed to reveal which company's scooter you did?
Oh yeah, yeah. I guess it's okay now. It was TVS, and the scooter was
Ah.
IQ.
Ah. So
Yeah.
if anyone's watching, they can go check it out and they'll know that it was done by you guys.
Yes.
The
Yes.
production.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
one more question which I have is because both of you mentioned that you're both studio engineers and live engineers. So what would you say is one of is the difference between setups that goes or that is there in a studio versus a live setting? Ruthvi?
Yeah, there's not a huge difference, but
Hmm.
in a workflow, uh, there is a lot of labor work that happens in a live
Hmm.
compared to a studio. The studio is quite fixed. Once it's rigged, it's pretty much permanent unless
Yeah.
we want to make any changes in the studio, in the infrastructure or whatever it is. But live, each time we need to actually carry a studio and set up wherever it is. And
Right.
since if you see studio is treated acoustically treated, it's
Hmm.
not just a random room.
Yeah.
There have been a lot of tests and mathematical uh, calculations being used, a lot
Yeah.
of physics being used into building a studio recording room. There are different kinds of recording rooms, right? So uh, with live, we don't have that luxury.
Hmm.
Most of the time, we don't even have a symmetry from
Right.
the distance between the left and the right. So the whole challenge is to set up the same kind of systems in the live arena.
Hmm.
And in a studio, we have just the studio monitors, speakers, small
Hmm.
little speakers.
Yeah.
Maximum would be an 8-inch to a 12-inch driver.
Hmm.
But in live, we have huge line arrays.
Hmm.
Hence, that's the only difference with the setup.
Okay.
Line arrays may come with crossovers and amplifiers for that, but eventually we still need a mixer. But in a
Right.
studio, we instead of a mixer, we can have an audio interface, just an audio interface. A
Hmm.
Scarlett, Focusrite Scarlett has been used worldwide
Hmm.
by almost all the uh, growing musicians
Yeah.
to record. And with just that and any DAW, Logic, Ableton Live, Pro Tools, Cubase,
Hmm.
anything works, which acts like a mixer or which gives a whole control. But
Yeah.
in a live scenario, we need to have uh, an analog or a digital mixer, like
Hmm.
we've always seen, which behaves like almost like a DAW, which is like again the control surface.
Yeah. Sonal, anything to add to that?
Ruthvi was pretty much, he summed it up pretty well.
Hmm.
The studio and live setups.
Hmm.
Yeah, um, in the studio, it's basically the acoustics are set up. It
Hmm.
depends on what gig you're doing. You're recording drums, you mic for that. You're recording
Hmm.
vocals, you mic for that. Apart from that, the pretty much this skeleton of the setup is always there. It's all wired up and it's set up.
Hmm.
Live, uh, live is very challenging that way because it requires you to think on your feet all the time. You're
Hmm.
you're you're worried about that. You're worried about this. There could be, you know, anything from a policeman's walkie-talkie to, some guy grinding stuff in the next building can cause problems for you in life.
Yeah.
It's a very challenging, and like it forces you to think all the time differently, all the time look for solutions.
Hmm.
That's why I always love life that way.
Hmm.
It always gives you challenges that you can technically solve pretty much. But setup wise, it's like you said, it's a lot more labor work.
Hmm.
I'd say
Work.
moving
Okay.
on the line arrays and
Yeah.
calibrating speakers. So calibrating the system is the main difference. Studio is set up and calibrated all the time. The speakers are
Hmm.
tuned, but each time you do a live setup, your speakers and your subwoofers, they have to be aligned digitally, and they have to be calibrated. That's pretty much. And apart from what Rithi said, that's pretty much the
On a
difference between
basic
all of
level,
us.
I think
Okay.
this is the difference.
Okay.
Yeah.
If we get deep into it, yeah, we can even get into what cables that we use. There are different
Ah.
kind of. It's the same XLAs, but a
Hmm.
different quality
Right.
cables that we
Yeah.
use in live
Right.
to in a studio. And studio, if we just have about 20 cables, even if we
Hmm.
spend a hell lot of money on each cable, works fine. But in live, that almost that doesn't happen. We don't have that such a
Right.
luxury to whatever mix crossovers and line array systems. All of these matter a lot.
Hmm. Okay.
Depends on the
And
equipment.
right, right. And for the last question that I have for the both of you is any advice that you have for aspiring sound engineers or producers, such as myself, and of course anyone watching this episode? Sonal?
Uh, Keep doing would be the first one.
Hmm.
So like whatever gigs that come your way and whatever projects yourself or for other people like that come your way, just keep doing it. And while you're doing it, you know, this is all about problem solving. Sound engineering is all about problem solving, right?
Hmm.
So if you find a problem with the mix, you should be able to identify it and solve it.
Hmm.
So the most important thing that anybody who's doing that in recording, mixing, mastering, whatever you do, would be like train your ears, and be sharp enough to identify problems in what you do. Right?
Right.
No one's perfect. Everyone starts out bad. Initially your mixes are gonna sound really bad according to
Hmm.
other people. That and that negative criticism, that's unavoidable. But
Hmm.
what you have to hone and train is to get the right kind of feedback from it,
Hmm.
take it in a good way, and convert it into such a state that where you can improve upon it. So the
Hmm.
next thing that you do, you learn from all your mistakes and see what went wrong, why it went wrong, and improve.
Hmm.
So that's basically the two things: keep doing stuff and keep learning from it. Keep learning all the time.
Okay.
That's what I'd say.
Yeah. Pretty good advice, Ruthvi.
Yeah, that's a great advice, Sonal. So that's about it. I would say I would start with keep your ears open all the time. Keep
Hmm.
your ears healthy. Uh, keep your habits healthy, just so that the ears and the brain can function as efficient as possible.
Hmm.
As and not just efficient, it should be correct. And what
Hmm.
I'm hearing, what my ears hear, should also be correct. And by the same. In other words, try to beat the fatigueness.
Hmm.
Have build your schedules and habits such that it supports uh, what we are doing.
Hmm.
If you're a live sound engineer, you it's a kind of a different year treatment that we need to year discipline that we need to maintain. If you're a
Hmm.
studio guy, can be a lot more relaxing.
Hmm.
So I would like to start off with that and just keep learning every day, try and explore. The only way to go about this is evolve each time to time. Just keep evolving. Don't We should never think that okay, I this is about it and I know this and it's done. It's going to set my sound and my production skills and all of that. No, because we know how production tools have changed just over the last 10 years,
Hmm.
a decade, not even 10 years, like 5 6 years. We have almost not using those plugins, those tools
Right.
anymore, pretty much. So they have come a newer tools, newer softwares,
Hmm.
newer applications, which help us to get the job done really quickly. Than people used to take about 5 6 hours to get the same amount of same amount of work done back then. I still remember in 2014 we used to sit down and clean up tracks. Now we can just clean up tracks and we have better noise gates and stuff like that, for example,
Hmm.
and better noise removing applications and uh, softwares. So anything like that would make our workflow and everything more efficient. We can get we can probably even mix 2 songs a day, wherein people used to take about a week to mix a song. Like they used to sit down for a week and mix a song. But
Hmm.
if this whole setup is right, if my uh, brain and my ears are functioning well, I could probably even mix 2 to 3 songs a day.
Wow.
Such the technology that we have today and the era that we are living in. I think we need to be at it every other day,
Hmm.
just so that we are on par with the
Yeah.
technology. We can
Yeah.
get things done. I'm pretty sure that we should be able to start recording on an iPhone by 2025, or
Hmm.
probably on any good smartphones.
Hmm.
And yes, there are good advantages from that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Like,
that last point I get. I mean, acoustic drums. What I've recently noticed is, if it's for like a small video, I use my iPhone because the mix that comes out of it or the compressed audio that comes out of it is pretty good for phone audio, and it's.
yeah,
But yeah,
yes.
yeah,
Back
and
then, you still remember that we had recorded something with OnePlus something, some phone and stuff
hmm,
like that. It used to sound good back then, but if we listen to it now, it sounds really bad,
yeah,
bad,
yeah,
hopeless. But the newer iPhones that's come out just can capture anything with the right amount of compression.
yeah,
So the AI, I mean, the technology is just gone crazy. It can even know how to compress a signal source.
yeah,
No, it's just insane. So I'm pretty
yeah,
sure that they're going to be companies who comes with better presets in the next few couple of years, which
yeah,
would probably suit our recordings even better. And the whole
yeah,
recording industry itself are evolving, trying
yeah.
to make the recording process as easy as possible.
Hmm. Yeah. And with that, that pretty much brings us to the end of today's episode. I believe this is episode 22. Yeah, 22 of Offstage. And you can check both Ruthvi and Sonal out. They'll be tagged if you're watching this on Instagram, if you're watching this on YouTube. Their social media links will be in the description. And yeah, thank you to the two of you for joining me in this episode.
Thank
So
you, and
thank you for
thank you
having me.
for having us
Yep,
on the show.
Yeah.
absolutely
And
lovely to be here.
It was a
and
great
yeah,
time talking to you guys.
yeah, it was nice talking to both of you, and I will see all the viewers in the next episode. See ya.
See you guys.